Hello, welcome. Today we're going to try something which we hope to make a regular appearance for Amrit and myself on a monthly basis. Basically, sharing what we've done at Zilliqa month by month, and also recapping some of the things we've done previously and talking about developments also for the year ahead. So, we're going to pretty much cover a lot of stuff that's on some slides first, and then have an AMA, allowing you folks, the community, to ask us a range of questions on the burning topics that are in your minds. So welcome, Amrit, to our first monthly wrap AMA.
Yeah, this is the first time we are doing this. I'm excited and a bit nervous as well.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking I'm going to catch the question bug, so I'm probably going to keep throwing questions at you as you go through your slides, so you just warm you
Sure.
up for the crowd, you know.
Yeah, and for the crowd, just let's take it, keep it as informal as possible. We would like to interact with you and we'd like to take as many questions as possible. And we don't want to make it very, very formal. So we would like to better connect with you instead than being very, very formal here. So, but yeah, I mean, as Colin said, we'd start with a few slides so that you get a sense of what we plan to do or what we have done so far, starting from 2021, and then we'll give you a sense of what are the things that are going to come up in the next few months or quarters. So let me see if I can figure out how to present my slides here.
Yeah, so I think we're looking forward to sharing some of the strategic ideas that we have and some of the specific elements that bind into the overall vision for Zilliqa in 2021. We have a lot of things moving simultaneously. We're quite excited about a few of those, which are gaining incredible momentum at the moment. So we'll talk to those as we go through the deck. Clearly, we've hit a milestone with total lock value today on ZilSwap, which was past the 50 million mark, which was very interesting for us to see how quickly that's being adopted. Obviously, there's governance taking place, which is equally exciting for us to see the community pitching in and discussing what is the right way to go with specific elements of what we do. So that's the power of voting being brought to our decentralized way of being, which is something we obviously believe in quite strongly. And looking forward to the overall approach, we feel certainly that we're trying to simplify the message about Zilliqa. We have a heavy tech influence, of course, but for folks who are coming to the project in a new way or a different way, we are now looking at what we think is a simple way to describe getting open finance to anyone on the planet who has a smartphone. And this one is something we have been working on for a while and now adding dApps which people can interact with and more aggressively move into open finance arenas such as microservices, whether it's lending and borrowing or microinsurance. All of these things are going to come into play in a DeFi open finance environment, which we're definitely building across the ecosystem.
I'm so sorry. I think I will have to restart and reconnect. I just got this laptop delivered and Zoom doesn't have the rights, so I'll have to disconnect and come back. Just give me 1 second. Sorry, so sorry for this.
Sure, no problem. So I can talk a little bit to the overall thrust on marketing. We've had quite a lot of action already this year. We've generated a huge amount of activity on social engagement, and we've certainly pushed very hard into LinkedIn as well. You may have noticed that if you're in and around or following us on LinkedIn, we've put a lot of effort into updating daily content multiple times a day, and we've actually generated a huge amount of leads from LinkedIn. It's been quite exciting to see the sheer number of financial institutions that have got engaged with us in private messaging and sharing data and information about blockchain strategies. So I'm pretty excited about the impact of LinkedIn. Obviously, that's not high profile marketing, but it's very specific to the enterprise and fintech industry. Likewise, we've also been making a lot of announcements. We've pushed out, I think, more than 20 announcements on the Telegram announcement channel in the last 2 months for all the things that we've participated in, worked on, and launched. And of course, that also includes updates on the mainnet and so on and so forth. So we communicate quite regularly through those channels. So anyone who wants to find out about Zilliqa, they should sign up for the Telegram announcements channel, as well as Twitter. Twitter has grown tremendously, way past 140,000 followers now, and hopefully we'll get that up to 200,000 by the end of the year. So the slides have arrived.
Yeah, I think you should be able to see the slides now. I'm so sorry for this. Okay, so as Colin mentioned, it's going to be a very informal session of that sort. We'll take you through some of the plans that we had and some of the achievements that we have made in the last 2 months or so, so starting from this year. And then we will give you a sense of what we plan to do in the next quarter or so. So one of the key metrics, and I think we saw these discussions quite happening in the community in the last month or so, was about network usage. So this was the very first time we were very close to hitting 1 million gas ZILs that was supposed to be paid as gas to the miners. And for those who are not very familiar with how the circular economy on Zilliqa works, is that every time you send a transaction to the network, the fee that you pay in that transaction actually doesn't go to the miners, unlike on many systems like Ethereum, for example. So those fees actually are taken away out of circulation. So it was the very first time we were very close to hitting 1 million ZILs that was paid to the miners and were taken out of circulation. I'm very confident that probably the next month or so, we definitely will hit 1 million. So, and you can see the trend, which is actually increasing, which actually shows there's a lot of activity on the chain and a lot of smart contract activity that's going on the chain since we launched staking, ZILSwap, and ZWAP tokens. I would also like to sort of give a shout out to a community developer user who proposed ZIP18. Basically, the idea behind ZIP18 was to be able to increase the cost for payment transactions. So when you transfer ZILs from one address to other, not the smart contract transactions, but just the transactions where you transfer ZILs from one address to another, you basically pay 0.002 ZILs. And the idea behind a user and this proposal ZIP18 was to be able to increase that fee by at least 50x. So now instead of paying 0.002, you'd be paying 0.1 ZIL per transaction. And what we expect as a result of this change is that hopefully all the transactions that are actually payment transactions will contribute much more towards this circular economy that will drive much more ZILs towards out of circulation. So hopefully once this has been approved by the community, so I'm very happy that it has been approved. It will take a bit of time for us to implement this in the next couple of next releases. But once that's in, you'll be able to see that more gas fee actually gets taken out of circulation. That's very good news for every token holder. Moving on, in terms of, we have been talking about DEXs, especially ZILSwap. It has been hugely successful for us. Just to set the stage right, ZILSwap is a DEX that was launched in October 2020. So it is a very recent DEX. The ZWAP token, which is the incentive part for ZWAP users and for ZILSwap users, came very late in February. So given and the number of tokens that are actually on ZILSwap in total is around 14, but only 3 tokens, GZIL, XSGD, and ZWAP tokens are the ones that are actually incentivized. So people are incentivized to put their liquidity on those pools. Now, given all this setup and background, again, this is unfortunately DeFi Pulse, which is from where we took this data points. Unfortunately, doesn't list or has not so far listed non-Ethereum tokens and non-Ethereum DEXs. But if imagine for a moment if ZILSwap were listed on DeFi Pulse, you would see ZILSwap at ranked around number 10, given the total value locked on this DEX. So this is the list of all DEXs that are currently on Ethereum and the total value locked. So they're ranked by total value locked. And ZILSwap recently hit, I think it was today, I guess, it hit $50 million worth of total value. So that's an exciting news for us. But as you can imagine, a DEX has 2 basic features, right? One is liquidity. So you want to ensure that you have enough liquidity so that if anyone comes and wants to trade with that DEX, then the price slippage will not be that high, and you would be able to guarantee the price that you're actually, the DEX is basically quoting you initially. The second part is obviously on the the trading volume. So a DEX is basically a trading platform. So you want people to come and more trade on that platform. So from that angle, if you look at the trading volume that DEX Zilswap has been processing, oops, if I can move the slides. So what we did was we went to CoinMarketCap and then took all the DEXs that are currently listed on CoinMarketCap and tried to rank them in terms of the total volume being traded across 24 hours. And if you look at where Zilswap stands across all DEXs, we are currently ranked number 20. Again, with the limitation that it's only 3, I think it's probably the most recent one that has been launched. And then with only 3 main tokens out there. Now, obviously, when we started our venture into DeFi, there are basically 2 main pieces that we had to build. One was the stablecoin, because if you don't have a stablecoin, you can't do much with the volatile assets. So you need a base layer, you need a stablecoin to be able to actually build things on top of that, right? So one was XSGD, which we wanted to build, and we built that. The second was we obviously started staking to be able to ensure people that those token holders who actually own ZILs will have a way to be able to make use of that ZILs. So be able to earn something from their holdings. And the third part was about ZilSwap, because in any case, if DeFi goes anywhere on Zilliqite, people will be launching a lot of tokens. And you need a mechanism, you need a marketplace where people could list their tokens in a permissionless manner and be able to trade those tokens around, and people will be able to buy those assets from that marketplace. So when we started, roughly speaking, 6 or 8 months ago, when we started working on DeFi plans, 3 key pillar areas were there, which was one was staking, ZilSwap, and XSGD, which was the stable coin basically. And now, if you look at what we have achieved since that start of our journey, obviously staking has been hugely successful. We have been able to lock close to $600 million worth of assets there. Again, it varies depending on how many people actually go and put their stakes on the staking contract, and also depending on the price as well. But overall, the staking in general has been very successful. One, also because it has been able to help us bootstrap the GZIL, the governance token contract. But one thing that now is appearing to us, and of course it was somewhat obvious back then, was around liquidity. So now we have $600 million worth of assets actually locked and trapped in that staking contract. Now, the obvious question is how to make use of that liquidity, right? So this is something that we have been thinking about very aggressively internally. And obviously, there are different mechanisms in which we can make use of that liquidity. First is around pillar protocol. So for example, let's say, or basically leverage. So for example, let's say if you stake, let's say 100 ZILs in the staking contract, let's say you would be issued a bonded ZIL token. So for every 100 ZIL, you could be issued, let's say 75 BZIL. And with those 75 BZIL, you could, for example, do anything. So it gives you basically a leverage position. So either you could sell them for ZILs, you could sell them for XSGD, you could put that in Pillar Protocol, you could put that in ZilSwap, you could do all sorts of things. What it basically does is it actually puts your liquidity that's actually in the staking contract to use. So now you can actually make use of your liquidity that's actually in the staking contract. That's very powerful. And eventually it allows you to actually build derivative products that you can imagine, for example, leverage products. The second point and the second key area that we have been working on was, as mentioned, around DEX. So one, obviously, the main pain point, at least until we launched the Zwap token, was around incentive. So people who were providing back then liquidity on ZilSwap, they didn't have a very strong incentive. The only incentive that they had was 0.3% of the trading fees that they were actually gaining. But again, the trading volume wasn't that high, so people were not actually earning that much money for providing that liquidity. But now with Zwap tokens, we are actually seeing an aggressive behavior where people are actually building and putting their liquidity on ZilSwap. We discussed a little bit, mentioned this a little bit earlier today. Close to around $50 million worth of assets actually logged in ZilSwap today. So that's a very encouraging result, and we are number 10 from that ranking. So that's very encouraging. However, this is something that the recent proposal on ZilSwap that some people are talking about on Twitter is about how to extend that incentive to other tokens. So right now, the incentive is only and focused on XSGD, GZIL, and Zwap tokens. Now people are thinking, and the committee is actually discussing about, can we extend this incentive mechanism to other tokens? For example, POD tokens and other tokens, BOL tokens, for example. So that's something that that will hopefully also bring more liquidity on top of ZilSwap. The second area is about bringing more assets. So, Colin can talk a little bit more about this later on. Is they are key. I feel that there are two ways in which we can bring more assets. One is by bringing more native tokens, native dApps that will be built on top of Zilliqa. And for example, you could imagine, a new Pillar, for example, Pillar token that could be a stablecoin token that will be built natively on Zilliqa. You could imagine X Academy, for example, would be developing a native token on that will be listed on Zilliqa and ZilSwap. Then the other sort of line of argument and line of thought is bringing assets from other chains, so cross-chain assets. So for example, bringing Ethereum assets, bringing ERC20 assets, bringing Bitcoin, by the way, that's also possible. So that will happen once we have the Ethereum Zilliqa bridge. So hopefully with these two mechanisms, one, by bringing native assets, at the same time by bringing cross-chain assets, hopefully there will be more assets and therefore more liquidity and therefore more TVL and therefore more trading, 24-hour trading volume. Now, the third point that, and the third area that we have been working on was obviously on, Singapore dollar-backed stablecoins. So it's glad that, I think Emeric, who is the head of Stratix project, so leading all these stablecoin initiatives at Xverse, he recently announced that the total number of Singapore dollars, tokenized Singapore dollars that have been issued so far is around 10 million. So that's a huge milestone. And the good thing about that is that half of that is actually issued on Zilliqa today. So in terms of ZRC2 tokens. And even further, half of that, so half of what is actually issued on Zilliqa, half of that is actually currently sitting on ZilSwap. So that's also gives you a sense of how many people who are actually holding Singapore dollar stable coin are actually putting that to use by providing that, by putting that into liquidity pools. And there is an incentive for people to do so. So that's very strong. However, it would also be interesting if you are familiar with what's happening in Ethereum ecosystem, for example. There's a lending market that is being developed, that has been developed around stable coins. Not so much for around altcoins, and even for Bitcoin, there's not a huge lending market for that, but there's certainly a very strong lending market for stable coins on Ethereum ecosystem and beyond. And so one idea would be to be able to build products. And the pain point here is that, XSG right now, the only incentive that you have today with Singapore dollars stablecoin is to be able to put that into ZilSwap. But we are thinking about ways in which you could actually build more structured products, including, for example, lending products that will be backed by Singapore dollars. So people would want to borrow Singapore dollars stablecoin, tokenized stablecoins, and they will be able to use it somewhere else. But again, this market needs to be developed. It's not there yet. It needs to be developed. It will take time to build that market infrastructure. One other limitation around Singapore dollar stablecoin is that certainly Singapore is a good developed market, but obviously it's not USD-backed stablecoin. So there's certain limitation on what people can do. For example, today, it's the only way you can get access to XSGD is through ZilSwap. So people who are not sitting in Singapore, they will only have to, if they want to get a hold of and get access to Singapore dollar stablecoin, they have to go to ZilSwap. So we are thinking of ways in which this could be more accessible and more people would be able to get access to that token. At the same time, we're also thinking about bringing USD-backed stablecoin. And one easy way to do this is by using the Ethereum Zilliqa bridge. So for example, if you imagine USDC or USDT on Ethereum, you could be able to wrap them around and bring them over to Zilliqa via the bridge. So basically, this gives you a sense of what we are planning in terms of DeFi. Colin, would you like to give some thoughts on the NFT space that we're working on?
Sure. Well, it's certainly taking off dramatically globally with a lot of headlines from people who are selling NFTs at an incredibly high ticket price, and that's drawing a lot of attention into the industry. In fact, if we look at companies like Dapper Labs, who started the CryptoKitties craze and now the Top Shots success, generating over $200 million in revenue from these, it shows that there is a very strong use case for NFTs. And Zilliqa itself has the ability to mint NFTs to its chain, and has actually brought in a couple of big name celebrities to the fold with some well-produced, I think, NFTs, just showing what we're capable of, what the NFT can do. We've partnered obviously with Mintable very closely and put that on the store there. And it's been quite exciting to see the interest generated by the celebrities, certainly on Twitter. So many of them coming into our DMs to talk about how they can create NFTs, how they can tokenize their music and even tokenize themselves. In the case of Soldier Boy, who quite clearly wants to develop his own Soldier coin, which is quite exciting, I think, as a prospect. The Star Killers guys, really incredibly creative, looking forward to running a whole suite of NFTs, and other stars lining up to issue NFTs to the Zilliqa blockchain through the Mintable store platform. So it's been quite exciting to see that momentum really carry into the Zilliqa ecosystem. And there are many more projects now in the NFT space which we're working on, not just for music celebrities, but also for artists and art, of course, a very important part of the NFT ecosystem, and hopefully sports stars as well, because it's interesting. Amrit, you mentioned about other tokens coming on the platform. Of course, we have this partnership with UFFS and their fantasy sports platform, which will roll out multiple different sports leagues, starting with the NHL. And of course, they themselves are looking to create trading cards for their players, their player lists within those fantasy teams. And they actually do have internal marketplaces which are created using our own technology to help people trade on an internal basis for their ecosystem. So the development of NFTs is incredibly powerful. It's giving people a lot of creative ideas. It's actually called the creator economy now. And it's something that Zilliqa is supporting in many different areas across many different types of industry and business, music, media, sports. So I'm excited about it. It gets a lot of headlines, gets a lot of attention, and helps people understand how they can monetize themselves, monetize their own rights, their own IP rights, and their own creativity. So this is something that has got a huge head of steam, and it's going to drive us aggressively through the year with a lot more interesting announcements on NFTs and NFT delivery.
I think that's it basically, right? So
yeah,
so that was the sort of very short. Sorry, go ahead, Colin.
Yeah, that was our kind of summary of where we're at status-wise. A look at the overall strategic thrust for 2021, where we're getting the most traction at the moment. And I think it does fit into the grand plan of open finance very nicely. So I can see the questions are coming in already. We've got them filtered through the chat. So I can be the official question asker, if that's okay.
Maybe we can stop the screen share and
go wide.
Okay, I think one question that Colin is coming up, or maybe we can start with that, is about the Binance news that that came out of ZIL3. Would you be able to update, give the community update on that?
Yeah, I mean, this one is fascinating because at the time we had a very clear agreement and understanding of what we were going to work on and partner on, and that it was hopefully just a question of finishing off the agreement and then rolling into a launch plan and so on and so forth. But things changed, and they've obviously moved into a bigger direction with Binance Pay, and that's unfortunately stalled a few of the other projects that we were working on. So we are in waiting mode to see what happens next with the project that we were working on together. And it's still in play, and we're still talking to them about how we get it done. I know CZ is on Clubhouse in half an hour. Maybe I should get on and ask him about that. But we're quite sure that we will come to a final delivery on the project and an announcement sooner rather than later.
I'm scrolling up, so there's a lot of Korean friends who are discussing. Unfortunately, I can't understand Korean, but I see a question from Andy. Are you scared the liquidity providing on ZilSwap will have a big effect on ZIL locked up? Well, there are obviously, if you see today, there are two avenues where you would see ZILs being used. One is, of course, around staking, to be able to earn staking rewards. And then the second is around ZilSwap, where you use ZIL to pair up with other tokens and you put that on ZilSwap. Again, the risks and the incentives are a bit different, right? Because on staking, you don't need a second pair. So people who are only owning ZILs, who are only interested in ZILs, can obviously go on ZILs on staking and be able to earn returns. The disadvantage, and one disadvantage that people have on staking is that there's an unbonding period. So it's not so easy to take your liquidity out. While on ZILSwap, it's the other way around, where it's much more liquid. So if you wanted to take your liquidity out, it's very easy to do so. So at any point of time, you can do that out, take your liquidity out. The good thing about ZILSwap is, in terms of a DEX, is that the more people use ZILSwap, either for providing liquidity or for trading their assets, the more the gas that is actually being paid in those transactions get taken out of circulation. So that obviously helps everyone who holds ZIL as token. So I'm not at all scared of the total value logged on ZILSwap, but rather it does give a benchmark on how big a trade you can do on ZILSwap. You can't do a big trade on ZILSwap if the liquidity and TVL is not very high. So that's a very sort of a metric for us to make sure that the metric remains high. We are today at around 50. It would be good to target, let's say, 1 billion TVL by the end of the year.
Okay. Shall I have a crack?
Go ahead.
Crack at Kraken. Actually, it's an ongoing discussion about exchanges. We are currently talking to 4 different exchanges that have American presence, access, actually potentially 5. So it's a big focus for us, and it does take a while to get through due process, but we're pretty sure that a couple of these partners will be coming towards us sooner rather than later. It's something that is very important. In terms of America itself, of course, we've talked to it a few times. In fact, we've signed an agreement with a partner who's going to launch a native token on the Zilliqa platform. We're also very excited about that. That's going to be announced sometime in the future. So we do have a lot of things bubbling under, things we can't quite announce at this moment in time, but there's quite a lot of US-facing activity.
Let me take this question on GZIL and voting. I mentioned this, I think, on Andy's channel somewhere, I can't recall where. But apparently there was an issue with where I think a community member had put up a proposal on vote.zilliqa.com, where the snapshot page. And it appeared as if a big whale who held a lot of ZILs was able to swing the vote in one direction. In fact, it was a bug, because that was not actually a whale, but it was a ZILSwap. The ZILSwap, the GZIL that actually in ZILSwap were actually used to vote for a certain proposal. So that was actually a bug, and that has since been fixed. So I haven't seen, after we have fixed that bug, I haven't seen any issue around that. So people who are voting, they generally own that ZIL. And the good thing is that now, once we have allowed this, now actually people who are actually providing liquidity on ZILSwap can also go and vote using the GZILs. So I don't think there's any other issue. That was a bug, but that has since been fixed. Let's take Colin, in terms of people who we employ at Zilliqa and people who join us as interns, and I've also seen people in the community developing and building dApps. To be very honest and fair to everyone, there are 2 components of dApp development, right? One is the smart contract, the actual smart contract that actually handles the logic, and the front end. So everything that sits above that, so sits on top of that. The good thing about smart contract development is that smart contracts are going to be tiny. So the maximum that you'll be writing depending on how complex you want to write your contract, but most of your contracts are not going to be more than 1,000 or 2,000 lines of code. So it's a very tiny piece of code that sits into your broader dApp. Now, and that's not just true for Zilliqa, but even for any other dApp. So if you go on Ethereum and Solidity and look at any dApp that's out there, the amount of code that it's actually written in that dApp, it's the Solidity code is not that much. So what ends up happening is a lot of people actually spend a lot more time on building the front end and doing all the JavaScript work than actually spending the time on writing the contract. And I've seen, with my experience, I've seen people, interns, being able to write a very complicated contract within a matter of weeks. So I'm not at all worried about people saying that, it might be complicated to write the code. It's actually not. And most of the time, it's basically taking some of the pieces of the code that's already written and being used by other dApps. most of the time is actually spent on actually building the front end and making sure that's that easy to use and so on.
Could we have a NFT marketplace? Well, I think we kind of do.
Yeah, we have Mintable that provides people access to an NFT marketplace. Maybe we can take this, since transaction fees from ZILs are burnt, will it come to a point where there's insufficient ZILs due to scaling and we will mint more? Can you explain briefly on the tokenomics? So based in the ideal world, again, I'm not sure when that ideal world and this ideal endpoint will be able to achieve. But in the ideal world, we would like to see a system where when you pay transaction fees, they go to the, let's say, the future pool, and that future pool is used to reward miners at the same time, used to provide people, the stakers, a reward. In the ideal world, you want that to be sort of sustainable, in the sense that for every one ZIL, every ZIL that you put out as a reward, you must have one ZIL that comes out as transaction fees. This way, the system will become more or less self-sustainable. We are not quite there yet, but the end goal is there. And if we achieve that end goal, then the system will not need any new token in that sense. And if more ZILs are burned, in the sense that will make sure that you will have more tokens to be able to reward people or provide more incentive to the miners. So that won't be an issue. We discussed, do you see a threat on BSC, so the Binance Smart Chain? To be honest, no. Obviously, we cannot debate all day about centralization, decentralization. But one thing that Binance Smart Chain has actually shown to us is that if you provide the right user experience to people, it's very possible that you can attract users towards your platform, towards your dApp, and be able to perform better than some of the other dApps that are more established. So user experience definitely plays a bigger role, and this is, I think, where Binance Chain has definitely performed better than most other L2 and even L1 chains in some sense. So I don't see it as a threat, but more like, as I say, given that we are building Ethereum Zilliqa bridge, there's going to be, we're also talking about other chains, including Binance Smart Chain as well. So it's going to be a world where we are going to see assets moving from one chain to the other, and vice versa. So it's more about going in that direction, about interoperability, and not thinking too much about being cannibalized.
Yeah, I think just to touch on interoperability, it's quite a big theme for Zilliqa this year because of the nature of the projects and partners that we are working with. Is there something we can talk to about how many different integrations we're making with multiple blockchains and potentially even BSC?
Yeah, but the good thing about the integration that we're working with Polynet is that it opens up. So it works like a transitive relationship. So for example, we connect with Polychain, and if Polychain connects with, let's say, 5 different chains, then we automatically connect with those 5 different chains. I think that I'm not saying this wrong, but I have a very strong feeling that Polychain already is connected with Binance Chain. But in any case, Binance Chain has its own bridge as well. So that's also another possibility to connect with Binance Chain. So today, Polynet is connected with Ethereum, Bitcoin, I think Elrond, and probably one more chain. So in a transitive way, Zilliqa, if it connects to Polynet, it will connect with all the other chains that are out there, connected with Polychain in that sense.
Is there a way to short circuit and explain how the bridge works in a nutshell?
Sure. So in a very simple way, basically, imagine, for example, you have your Ethereum sitting on Ethereum chain, and you want to move that on top of Zilliqa, so that you would be able to transact them, transfer them at a much cheaper fee. So basically, there are different models, but one simple model that's easy to understand is that you will have to take your Ether, and you'll have to send that into a contract. And that contract basically locks your Ether. So it will say that, okay, I have logged, let's say, Colin's Ether, 5 Ether in that contract. And what ends up happening with that, once that is confirmed, once Ethereum chain has confirmed that that transaction has actually been processed, then Polynet or the bridge basically will issue you a corresponding number of tokens on the Zilliqa chain. So for example, for 10 ETH that you logged on Ethereum chain, you will be issued 10 ZETH, Z-E-T-H, on the Zilliqa chain. And then you can use this ZETH as if it was Ethereum. And this sits on the Zilliqa chain. And again, if you wanted to go back, you will have to do the same thing in the opposite way, where you either lock or you burn your assets on the ZETH, on the Zilliqa chain, and then you will be, your Ethereum that were actually locked previously on the Ethereum chain will be unlocked, and then you will get access to your Ether. So in a simple way, that's how the system works.
Okay, is it going to have any effect on ZilSwap or even Zilliqa value in general as a question?
Well, as I just mentioned earlier when I was presenting our slides, is that the hope is that we can potentially bring more assets like Ethereum and ERC20s. That today, for example, if you transfer, let's say, any ERC20 today on Ethereum, you would end up paying, I don't know, $10 to up to $300 worth of Ether as gas fee. So once you move them over to Zilliqa, you'd be able to pay in at much cheaper rate. And the hope is that many of these, and again, we are counting on the community to help us with that, is that once these, they would be able to move their assets from the Ethereum chain to be able to put that on ZilSwap and then be able to provide liquidity on that. So obviously, one pain point that we are thinking to solve is today, most of the chains that are out there, most of the bridges that are out there today that have been built, there is a one-time cost. So when you transfer or when you lock your Ether on Ethereum chain, you still have to pay a fee that stays on the Ethereum chain. We are thinking of ways to offset that cost. Again, we'll have to, as a community, we'll have to figure out how that cost can be offset. It could be, for example, a percentage of the staking rewards, let's say, I don't know, 0.5% or 1% of the staking rewards could go towards incentivizing those people. It could also be possible to take a portion of the ZWAP rewards and redirect them towards incentivizing and offsetting that cost. But this is something that we have to figure out as a community together. But that's one pain point that I obviously see across all bridges that are out there, and or at least most of the bridges that are out there, and we would love to sort of provide a way to fix that problem.
Okay, there are some technical questions. What plans, timeline for improving the smart contract sharding execution on multiple shards? So,
yeah, so we, as you may know, we had recently published a paper on smart contract sharding. So it's a paper that was published on a conference called PLDI, Programming Language Design and Implementation. And it's one of the best conferences in programming language theory and implementation. And basically what we noticed across all the chains that are doing sharding is that when you process a smart contract, all transactions that are going towards that smart contract will always be handled in one shard. It's not, by design, it is not very shardable. It means that you can't basically take the benefit of the fact that you have a sharded architecture and you want to do things in parallel. And what this paper does and proposes a solution is that you can have your contract basically, sitting on different shards, and you'll be able to process and send multiple transactions targeted to the same contract and then be handled in different shards. And this way you're actually achieving true parallelization, where it doesn't happen where your smart contract sits in one shard and all transactions have to go to that shard. Instead, you will have your smart contracts in the same contract being sitting on different shards and be able to send transaction in parallel to the same contract in different shards and be able to process that in parallel. So this is something that we have just published a paper. Again, there's a bit of difference between what you see in academia and theory and what we will have to do to be able to make sure that it can be implemented in practice. This is something that we do intend to start working on very soon on that. I don't have an exact timeline on this, but probably in Q2, we might be able to start working on this in some shape.
Okay.
We have a few questions on marketing. Would you like to touch upon that, Colin?
Yeah, so obviously I joined a year ago, slightly over now, and head of marketing was the role, and we were trying to change the way that Zilliqa communicated and boost the marketing approach. If we look at all of the stats that we calculated for 2020, I think we spent a lot of time working on Twitter, especially that crypto Twitter is quite a powerful influencer market. We were coin of the day multiple times. We were #1 altcoin 52 days of the year. I think in terms of our media placements, they're in the thousands. We actually post them on Telegram every day, between 10 and 15 media hits every single day. We do spend a lot of time doing AMAs on Reddit and on Telegram groups. We spend a lot of time working on updating our YouTube, and we also communicate as often as possible in many different realms, including virtual conferences. And I feel I'm not quite sure where the disconnect is, because we issue and deliver and achieve a huge amount of marketing impact by any statistical analysis. More than 1 point something, I think 1.3 billion social engagements in a year, last year. I'm not quite sure where the disconnect is, what people aren't seeing. I looked on Telegram, our announcement channel this year. We had more than 20 announcements. We have a PR agency that works really quite hard. They had tremendous success with the HG Exchange launch earlier this year. Was just off the charts in terms of media placements and interviews. Obviously, we were on CNBC. I could go on and on and on about all of the work and all of the logging of all the work that we do, and we still have people saying, where's the marketing? Who's doing the marketing? What's the marketing equating to? And we scratch our head, quite frankly. We've got 5 people in the team working really hard every day, doing Medium posts, doing Blockfolio posts, doing blog posts, updating every month regularly in full on the blog. There's a huge amount of effort going into the marketing, and I really don't think the marketing gets enough credit for the effort it's putting in. Now, does marketing exactly correlate to token price increases? I don't know. We couldn't find a correlating link using Meltwater for 6 months between making announcements and the price increase. For example, we announced something like 36 different items in 1 week last year, and the price stayed the same, if not dropped slightly. So we're looking at it. We are analyzing every part of it. We are thinking, what are the best channels to use to get the outcome that we need? I talked to the LinkedIn effort recently, and I think that that's working tremendously well. And I think that we are happy, very happy, when the community helps boost and promote what we do. When we have folks coming into our direct messages and saying, I contacted this guy from this exchange, and he came back with a highly positive response because I'm putting pressure on him as a customer to say, get ZIL on this exchange, I am extraordinarily happy. I'm delighted that the community can help us in this way, actually contributing so powerfully. If you look at the blockchain of the Zilliqa Observer with Chase Raz, you look how professionally that video work is done and how the explanations are done by Chase. He's opening up a whole new market, I think, in the US for us, just off his own bat. He's done incredibly well. So those kind of videos, we obviously support Blockchain Andy as well, who's been just pumping out the videos for months and months and months, and growing his channel to tens of thousands of subscribers. So if we look at it in general, there is a massive amount of simultaneous communication from Zilliqa Research directly, from the marketing team here, and also from the community as well. And I don't know, the numbers and stats are impressive. We could, I suppose, compare them with other projects, but we've done just about everything we can do, I think, in terms of the communication channels that are available. Can we do more? Can we do paid campaigns? Can we put ourselves in billboards in Times Square? Possibly. There may be a time and a place for that sometime in the future. But at the moment, the communication is about the project, the achievements, the technical developments, updates that are critical to the day-to-day running of the Zilliqa blockchain and the ecosystem, and other developments in terms of what we do with Scylla, in terms of the white paper that Amrit's talking to, which is really impressive and highlights how special and unique our sharding technology is, and how it sits compared to other forms of sharding. So it's something we'll leverage. We'll take all of this information, we'll repurpose it, we'll push it out. We obviously use Twitter very aggressively, so we'll continue to do that. And of course, we're always open to suggestions. If anyone has the magic bullet, the silver bullet, which is going to blow away all of the other marketing plans, campaigns, efforts, and work being done by the team, then please supply it, because we'll be happy to use it.
Well, I hope this answers some of the questions that people have around marketing. Colin very rightly said, there's a lot of things that keeps on going on, right? We have, I think the last week itself, or I think before that, I myself, we did 3 AMAs back to back within a week across across Telegram groups, and it's always about about communicating what we're doing to the Zilliqa community, and also about reaching out to external communities to be able to attract more people towards Zilliqa. And that's something that we have been doing in different ways across the board. There's one question about Zilliqa Capital. Unfortunately, there's not much that we can say right now due to legal and compliance reasons. But you'd hear something from Zilliqa Capital very soon, hopefully.
Anything on HG progress?
Yeah. So HG Exchange, obviously, as you may have noticed, and Colin was was involved in the marketing and connections there as well about tokenizing whiskey. Obviously, they are still in the process of getting through the sandbox situation in which they are in, sandbox setting in which they are in. But one clear benefit that, of course, beyond, as you mentioned, about marketing, one obvious sort of benefit that comes from a GX is that it's an exchange that is regulated by MAS, which is not the easiest regulator out there in the world. And then it provides you with the publicity that you need, that anyone needs, any project needs, in terms of pushing it outside public. So that's number one. Number two is about the actual direct benefit to Zilliqa as a platform, Zilliqa as token, and ZIL tokens. Obviously, securities market, at least in the private securities market, is not that is not a huge volume driven market. So you don't see, even today, for example, when you go and buy private equities today, there's not much of liquidity, number one. Number two, it's not that frequent. So you don't see frequent trades happening. So of course, HGX won't be a Binance-like exchange where we would see millions of dollars worth of volume going up every day. That's not how HGX is structured. That's not what the goal is. The goal is to provide people and investors a marketplace where they can get access to liquidity for private equities. But obviously, one clear benefit is around the gas fees, that whatever is happening is on chain, on the Zilliqa chain, on the Zilliqa mainnet, and you'll be able to see whatever gets paid in terms of gas fee goes back to, as a circular economy that I mentioned, it goes back to taken out of circulation, and then therefore helps everyone that's involved with the Zilliqa ecosystem. Purchasing XSGD, maybe we can take that, Colin. Purchasing XSGD using fiat is limited to SGD 30K through XFIS, with some other ramps limiting daily purchase amounts without setting up an XFIS business account. How does one buy more XSGD? So unfortunately, there is a limitation today. We agree with that. So we have currently three possible ways of buying XSGD using your Singapore dollars. One is you go to XFIS directly, and then unfortunately you have a limit, but you have possibility to buy from there. Number two, you could go to Zanpool, which is a fiat off-ramp and on-ramp solution, and you can buy XSGD from there. The biggest that you can imagine is, is our ZILSwap. So today you can go to ZILSwap, and today you can buy. I think the trading volume on ZILSwap for XSGD is close to $1 million per day. So it's a market where you actually can go and buy. Maybe it's possible that if you make a huge order of, let's say, I don't know, $900,000, then of course the market will move. But if you buy in chunks, ZILSwap is one way to give you access to XSGD. Obviously, you have to figure out a way to be able to convert your Singapore dollars to, your fiat Singapore dollars to, let's say, ZILs, and then you're able to take those ZILs and then buy XSGD from ZILSwap. So that's one way. Hopefully, this situation will improve in the coming days and months, and we are talking to experts to be able to work out some plan around that. But of course, there's being a compliant, MAS compliant, they certainly have some regulations and certain restrictions that they have to comply with. So there's certainly not much that you can do, but obviously there are other possible avenues like ZILSwap where you can actually definitely trade a much higher amount.
I think I can just mention on Coinbase, we've had a policy of not being able to say anything because we signed an NDA, which is very clear, but we have, of course, integrated with the Rosetta platform, and that was quite an impressive technical experience, and we've delivered on that. And in fact, the technical team was very impressed with the Rosetta technology and is looking at how that might be used for other interoperability projects in future. That's separate of anything to do with listing or anything like that. So it's been quite interesting to become more closely involved in the Coinbase ecosystem and see what that technology can actually do.
We need an energy exchange for the common people. I agree with this, but unfortunately there are certain regulations that it's complicated, and so this is where we have to talk to regulators and be able to see if we can open a G exchange to retail clients as well. But it's something that has to come with an approval from EMEA. So this is something that definitely I agree with you that is needed. It's needed to be able to participate in private equities market and even beyond. In a much easier way and much restricted, less restricted way. That's something that I agree with you, but it definitely will take time for regulators to approve on those fronts. What feature are you most excited for on Zilliqa that will set Zilliqa on a new level? Look, when I look at what's one big thing that happened in Zilliqa in the last 6 to 8 months, that has definitely been staking, because what staking has done is it has sort of created tentacles that are going in all directions. For example, staking itself has been very successful, but then it has issued, for example, GZIL that has created a sort of segue into governance mechanism on Zilliqa. It has also, in a way, sort of given birth to ZilSwap as well in some sense. And then we are seeing staking now, in a way, will also play a big role into Pillar protocol. So I'm personally very excited about what we can do with the trapped liquidity that's in staking. So you can imagine all sorts of derivative products that could come out of the staking, liquidity that's there in the staking contract. And one key area would be Pillar. So I believe that from my angle, I am really excited about what Pillar can bring, because that I think could be the next step. The second thing that I'm really excited about is Ethereum Zilliqa Bridge, because that will bring more assets towards ZilSwap. Potentially even bring very easily a USD-backed stablecoin, and then you can imagine all sorts of things happening with those tokens. So the more tokens you have, the more products you can build. One reason why Ethereum has been successful, as some of you may know, is because the tokens that are out there on Ethereum. So once we have more tokens, that will also help us create more products tailored to those products. So that's something that tailored to those tokens. So that's something that I'm really excited about.
Someone's asking if we could do a quarterly ecosystem style report.
Yeah, this is something that we have been thinking internally, but again, it takes time and effort. And again, we would love to do this. And again, I'm not saying that we don't want to do it. We definitely want to do it. It's just that we are thinking of what are the different things that we can do. For example, should we do regular AMAs like the one we are doing today with Colin? Should we also push more, let's say, more updated news around numbers? Because what I've really seen in the community over the last 6 months is that since the launch of staking is that the community actually believes and has seen and is spreading the news around numbers, because they know that it's not just about narrative, it's not just about communication, but actually it's now a lot about, if you are saying that something is being built, show me numbers that are actually being used. Show me numbers around how many people are actually using a certain dApp. Show me numbers around how many ZILs are actually being logged and used in that dApps. So this is something that we are really excited about, and this is exactly why we shared the first, let's say, end of year report, and we would love to do so. It all depends on how many things we can do given the time and space that we have. But we would love to do that. I agree with you. That's something that we should do, and we definitely would like to do that.
There's a question on the proposal system for governance, I guess.
Any thoughts on changing the proposal system where there's a wait timer and a notification system where we can sign up to give everyone to read and discuss any new proposals? I think that if I'm not wrong, Moonlit has a notification system built where whenever a proposal gets on top of the snapshot, then you do get notified that a proposal is up for vote. You also can subscribe to gov.zilliqa.com. This is the forum where things get discussed before it goes for vote. So that's something that you can get notified. So you can you can get a notification via email on what sort of projects or proposals that are being discussed. There's already sort of a timer sort of set. I think it's 1 week where every proposal that's at least of core type. So any proposal that's going to impact the core proposal, how Zilliqa works in principle, will have to give 1 week of time for people to discuss and digest. That's something that is already there, but once that sort of goes through and you are on the voting side, then Moonlit has a notification system where you get notified when proposal actually goes to vote. Can you talk about the ZWAP tokens given to devs? I heard it's about 400K worth. How is it split among the devs and where does it go? So currently it goes directed to, as you know, Switcho was the one who has been developing and who was responsible for developing that, the ZilSwap DEX. So the funds are actually currently being managed by Switcho, but obviously it has multiple use cases. It's not just about, I think Hanwan mentioned this on Twitter, I think earlier today, is that the fund is not necessarily just used for salary and funding, but it could be all sorts of things, right? It could be funding, marketing, making sure that people know about ZilSwap. So it's a fund that is actually will be used for all sorts of activities that surrounds and revolves around ZilSwap. Well, I don't recall exactly how much worth is that. It depends on the value of swap token per se. How far we can go with latency? One of the focus areas, obviously, from our side on the code side, has been to improve further throughput, and that's exactly why we published this paper on smart contract sharding to be able to make sure that the smart contracts can be processed in a parallel way. And again, the goal is to be able to improve throughput and lower latency. My end goal, again, it might be a little bit too optimistic right now, but my goal is to be able to bring the latency down to around 20 to 30 seconds. So a transaction, when you send to the network, it should not take more than 20 to 30 seconds to be able to process that. So that's something it's our objective. But again, we'll have to see how far we can go with all the research work and the development work that we have been doing. We are making efforts. For example, we have been, I think, improved latency quite considerably recently through the different updates that we have pushed on the mainnet. We are working on the Scylla virtual machine that's going to replace our interpreter. That's also going to boost the latency and the time it takes for a smart contract to be processed. And then we have this research paper that we just pushed out. That's something that's also going to give us a boost in terms of latency as well. So all the things are actually being aligned to make sure that throughput and latency can be improved even further. So, and I agree that sometimes it does look like there's a latency, and that hits both users and regular users, and so people who are transacting the payment transaction at the same time people who are using dApp. So we definitely are aware of this, and we are targeting to be able to bring down to something between 20 to 30 seconds. Let's see. Do you have any plans to integrate the BSC via ZilSwap? Yeah, I mentioned BSC is something that we are looking into integrating as well, and then not via ZilSwap, but more like you can move assets from BSC to Zilliqa and the other way around, and then you'll be able to, once those assets are on top of Zilliqa, you can put that on ZilSwap. Yes, once we have the question about Ethereum Zilliqa bridge, will there be a public testnet launch? Yes, we firmly believe in testing one ourselves, and then UI, UX testing, as well as a proper testing of the infrastructure with the help of our community. That's something that definitely we are interested in. So as soon as it's ready, we will push out a public release that you'd be able to play around with, get a feel of how things work, and be able to even suggest us ideas that, this is not working or something doesn't look good. You'd let us know, and then we'd be able to fix that before it goes to mainnet launch and in production system. Rupiah token, Indonesia is in the Zilliqa Accelerator program at the moment. Is it possible that we see more stable coins for regions that have a lack of accessibility to relatively stable assets? And that's exactly why we wanted to bring Rupiah-backed stablecoin. Unfortunately, that stablecoin that is in the Zilhive, unfortunately, that was issued on the Binance chain, and we didn't have bridge, so we couldn't bring that up. So now we have possibilities to bring Indonesian Rupiah-backed stablecoin either via the bridge or natively. So Xfers that has issued Singapore dollar-backed stablecoin is also interested in developing and issuing Indonesia-backed stablecoin. And again, that's one thing that we believe is that in that region, in the Southeast Asian region, there is a limitation of what people can do with their banks. Many people, around 60% of people, don't have access to bank accounts, and they're either underbanked or unbanked. So there's definitely a market and demand for stable coins. And we definitely are looking into providing people the right products around currencies and payments that they could use. Colin, would you like to take this question on what can the committee do to help spread the word of Zilliqa?
I thought we were going to talk about the biggest challenge we might face in the future. I think one of the challenges actually is recruitment right now. Looking at all the different things that we work on simultaneously, our headcount is just above 30 still, and it looks like we need more hands on deck. So it's the usual growing pains for a startup, is to find the talent and the capability to quickly speed up their orientation and help productivity to deliver all of these projects, all of these simultaneously exciting projects in the way that we hope to professionally and impactfully for the community. So it's definitely one of the biggest challenges I think we're facing this year, is getting the right HR to project ratio in the company. And yeah, we're going to be running hard to hit everything that we've got in the pipeline. It's an incredible list of things to do, and I'm very excited about those.
Yeah, we have way too many ideas. The question is, we don't have enough manpower to execute on those ideas, and this is exactly why, as you mentioned, it's we would like to expand very quickly. If everything goes well, my target is that by this year we should be able to add 5 to 10 more people straight away in different capacities, whether it be through business, marketing, be it technical. So they're going to be across the board hiring that we will do in the next 6 to 8 months.
And on the community, I think we've seen some brilliant YouTube channels set up by community members who've high quality video production, deep insight into the Zilliqa platform, as well as the different components of the ecosystem. And the more people can do that, the better for us. Certainly if they can do it in their own native language as well, that would be brilliant. We have a range of linguistic challenges for all the different markets that we hope to be working in. I saw, who was it, Hashtoshi on his video channel talking about spreading the word, almost evangelizing members of the community, doing what they can within their own local groups, within their own local networks, within their own company, just to talk about what Zilliqa is delivering as a blockchain and how that can help their respective community members or corporate partners. So if people can actually evangelize on our behalf, or talk to exchanges which they think we should be on, or get us involved in projects that we think we should be involved in, then it's just literally spreading the word on our behalf, and we appreciate it.
We mentioned about stablecoins already. About South America. Unfortunately, we have seen some people reaching out to us about stablecoins in Africa. We have not had any inbound requests from people in that region. But if you know someone who is interested in and who has the right ability and resource to work with us, we'd be happy to help out.
Just on the Zilliqa Launchpad, obviously we have right now a kind of managed service with those upcoming token launches to the Zilliqa blockchain. Those projects are kind of handpicked by us. We're actually giving a code name to this program called Lumos, which is helping us light up the world with new projects on the Zilliqa blockchain. Very excited about the first 2 or 3 of those, which we'll be exemplifying. Obviously, the star name in that is Xcademy, so we're very proud of what's being achieved there, and helping them to build a huge ecosystem using the Zilliqa blockchain and Zilliqa community as well. So yes, Lumos is coming, and it's going to help fast track people in a fully compliant way to launch tokens and raise funds on the Zilliqa blockchain.
I'm seeing questions all over the place. Would you consider Gzil? So I think there was a question around Gzil. I think a couple of questions around Gzil. So let me clarify this for people who are actually involved in staking in Gzil. As you know, there's a block number until which GSL will be issued, and beyond that, GSL will not be issued to people. Now, what will happen is that when let's say the date is, the block number will be associated with some date depending on how fast and quickly the blocks will get mined. But after that date, all the reward that you will get from staking is going to be purely in ZILs. So you will not be issued any more GSLs. But yes, you will continue to earn ZIL as rewards as staking. So that's not ending. So staking is not ending after that. After once all GSL are minted, that's somewhere going to be around somewhere in October or November this year. Well, 30 headcount is too little. It's true that our team is not too big, but what we have achieved with this small team is much more than what a 100 or 200 member team in other blockchain projects have achieved. So we are very proud of what we had achieved with the small team, but it doesn't mean that we don't want to expand. We definitely want to expand. This is something that we plan to do in the next 6 to 8 months.
Yeah, I think for 1031, it's a fascinating project. It's what we like about open finance and online banking, getting involved with a very innovative and exciting project, and they are tweeting quite regularly about working with us on certain things, and they will unfold in the coming weeks and months as well. We're very excited about what we can build with 1031.
Okay, I think we are mostly done. It has been an hour. I mean, we didn't even realize it's already an hour now.
Yes.
But yeah, it has been great interacting with you all. If you think this is something that you would like to see, we would love to do it, and happy to do it on a regular basis. Again, sometime it might be spontaneous like this, or sometimes it could be more structured, where we notify people much ahead in advance, and we could say, look, we are going to do an AMA, live AMA like this in a week's time, and you'd be able to come and ask live questions. But unfortunately, yeah, we apologize if we did not take your questions. There were way too many that we could take, but we really enjoy doing this. Colin, would you like to say something to close off?
Yeah, I mean, I think we do position ourselves quite carefully. I like when we say, a global blockchain made in Singapore but ready for the world. And that pretty much sums up where we're at. I mean, we can support any project anywhere at any time, but we do have our roots in Asia, and we do support the Asian open finance ecosystem very strongly. So I think we're good where we are, but we're obviously looking to expand, especially into the US and Europe more aggressively now. So I'm very excited about what 2021 is going to mean for us.
Okay, I think that's. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. Again, we'll try to do it more frequently. We'll have to plan internally on how to do it and which day to fix. It's already too late in Singapore, and I'm sure Colin would like to call it a day. But yeah, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. It was lovely speaking with you all, and hope we can do it again.
Thank you.